As teachers, our main job and main concern is all about the kids. But sometimes in your classroom itself can make you feel like you're small and not reaching anybody. Here on Teach Bigger, we do one thing and one thing only. We do it big. And we want to make sure that you understand that your classroom cannot confine what you want to do, which is help kids. Welcome to the Teach Bigger podcast.
Welcome to the Teach Bigger podcast. I'm Chris Pratt.
I'm Chris Mosley.
And I'm Tyler Lamont.
So today we are really excited because we have a special guest, and I don't even know how to give such a great introduction for all the amazing things that this guy has done. But we've known Nick Gonzales for many years, and he is like a brother to us from the band director world of Texas. However, Mr. Gonzales has had some life changes, and he is now totally taken his education career in a totally new direction. And we want to share his story with you today so that you can be inspired and motivated to realize that where you are is not where you're always going to be. And you can have a tremendous impact. All you have to do is follow what's in your heart and your dreams. So I want to welcome to the program today Mr. Nick Gonzales. And Nick currently is an educator in the great state of Utah. Am I right about that?
You're right.
It's a great state, right?
It's a state. It's a great state.
It is a great state. You know, Nick's from Texas, so it's a little bit hard to leave Texas, I can only imagine. But Nick, welcome today, and we're excited to have you. And, you know, we recently reconnected through Facebook, and I was super excited. I stumbled across a really powerful and inspiring video that Nick had put out on his Facebook page, and I literally had to stop and think to myself, like, this message has to be heard. And so we asked Nick to come on the program today because what Nick has an amazing gift for is leading people into a positive mindset. You know, and as a lot of times as educators, it is so easy to focus on the things that aren't going well. And in education, there are a lot of things that aren't going well. Everything from student behavior to student home lives to administration to funding. I mean, there's just a ton of things that need to get fixed. And we as educators, we all know that. But we also know as good educators that complaining about it doesn't change things, right? And so Nick has truly unlocked this secret and this power to making change. And it all starts with your mindset. And so, you know, we on Teach Bigger, we talk a lot about culture, Nick, and we talk a lot about like doing things out of the box. And so your story is very inspirational to me. And I wanted you to come on today, and we want to hear it straight from you. So, Nick, I'm just going to turn the show over to you, man. And I just want to invite you to be candid with our audience, to be candid with us, and really just like kind of tell us your journey. And I purposefully haven't said anything about your journey because I want people to hear it from you instead of me just like going on and on, right? So, Nick, welcome to the Teach Bigger podcast. We're all ears.
Woo! Wow. Guys, thank y'all so much. And this is a true blessing for me to be on here and reconnect with my dear friends and who I haven't seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. So this is truly great. But what really inspires me, guys, is that you all still have a passion for kids. So much that you want to spread the word. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful for y'all having me on here. Well, I'm a Texas boy, you know, born and raised Houston, Texas. You know, we grew up in a very poor home, but our parents loved us. We lived in a split home as well, so we had stepmom, stepdad, real mom, biological dad, and everything. And so, you know, there's good and bad in all of that. However, you know, we had a very strong mom who taught us to find the good in everything. And when we had problems in the home and we couldn't afford things, we had a mom that said, "That's okay. Let's find the good." And it really left an impact in our lives, and not just in our lives, but it left an impact to help pursue us to become educators. We saw a lot of negative things, which we see on the news every day. We see in our society, in our schools every day. Um, and like you said, Chris, we have an obligation to change mindsets. My mom was the biggest one on there. Uh, for instance, we when my twin brother, who's an educator as well, and he's a great band director, nationally recognized, and all that. But what people don't ever see whenever they see us is they always see us smiling because that's what my mom taught us. But they always see us in a very positive attitude. But when we were kids, you don't see that, just like we don't see in our kids at school.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom did one of the coolest things that I still do today. And it was when you argue, stop and stare at each other. And I dare you not to laugh. And she found ways to make bad situations good, which fast forward, we become educators, both my twin brother and I. And we started our journey I started my journey in Klein Independent School District. Learned a lot of great things there. We're more of a wealthier environment. And then 3 years later, moved to the Spring ISD, where, I got really blessed to meet Chris and Mosley. And as you know, as well, most folks don't know on the podcast, is it's a Title I district.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our kids come from poverty. Portions of our neighborhoods in the Spring district are riddled with gangs and violence, running down 1960 and whatnot. And I'll be honest with you, being a kid from the ghetto, but working at a school and being in college outside of that environment, you think you remember what it's like to live in an environment like that until you're out of it for so long.
Mm.
And so even when I went to Klein Independent School District, which was a pretty, again, my portion was a fairly wealthy, middle class to upper, society, moved to the Spring Independent District, and I saw more of what I grew up with, majority Black and Hispanic students. And I'll be totally honest with you, friends. I had a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes, I get to go back to my roots, but then I had a hard time teaching because our kids, whenever I had them do something or I gave them an instruction and they didn't do it, I would get upset. I would yell and I would say, guys, why aren't you doing it? And guys, I'll be honest with you. I had at least 2 years of frustration at Bailey when I was at Bailey Middle School. My first 2 years, what I didn't realize is I had a master teacher I was working with named Victor Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was getting upset, he was happy. While I was trying to get the job done in teaching and give him the best instruction I can, he's giving the best instruction he's doing because he's a master teacher, but he's making it fun. And I remember asking myself, how is he doing that and not getting upset and just letting it go? And it all came to me as he sees big picture. He sees big picture. That band is not the end all of life. Mm. It's how are you treating these kids? Because they're not kids. And I started seeing that in my coworker, and who's still my mentor today. And I had to change my mindset. Speaking of mindsets. And so I started changing my mindset to not worry about getting this instruction done by the end of the semester. But now what we need to do is how can I love these kids better? And because the people around me are. So I started, to be honest with you, I started doing what my coworker was doing. And next thing you know, I find myself coming to work happier. And you know what? I find my students, my brass students and my band happier. And I was like, that's the key. And then as we brought in masterclass teachers to come in, they're so happy and the kids are happy coming out. And it hit me. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what environment you're from or whether you're wealthy or you're poor. Everybody has this thing in common. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to feel loved. And everybody wants to feel important. And when I figured that out, a lot of great teaching happening. And not just that, our band program grew to like crazy. And we went from 250. Eventually, by the time I resigned and moved to Utah, we ended up having 400 in our band program. Why? Because it was a safe place.
Wow.
And kids loved being there. And I'll be honest with you, uh, our team that we had there with me and Vic and eventually Austin Swack, uh, we love the kids, and in turn, giving them great instruction to be great musicians as well. But number one, great human beings. So learned a lot in spring. I learned how to love kids in spring.
Wow.
When I thought I loved them before, you know what? Did I really, really care for every little bit of them? No, I didn't. I cared about my career more than I cared about how they're feeling.
Wow.
And once I learned that from my mentors, I was like, it changed my whole mindset.
Let me ask you this question, because what you said, I think we need to marinate on that for at least a minute or two.
Yes.
Looking back, what would you say? Hindsight's 2020, right? So looking back, what would you say is a or maybe a couple of warning signs that you care more about your career than the kids? Because if you ask any teacher, do you care about your kids? They're going to be like, absolutely. I love kids. That's why I do this. But as much as you did love kids and that's why you were a teacher, you had that reckoning moment where you said, wait a minute, I'm actually doing this for me, not them. So what were some warning signs and how did you realize it?
I didn't want, when you wake up in the morning and all you hear is, I don't want to go to school. We have kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go to school. Oh, I'm so stressed out. I too many things. And that wasn't even my kids talking. That was me. So, and I realized, I got to change something. And I just remember praying to God. And I'll be honest with you. I prayed to God to teach me patience. When in fact, I didn't need to learn patience because the kids are going to be kids. I needed to learn to love.
Mm-hmm.
And when you catch yourself yelling day after day after day over little things, you have to and it's over a big group of little human beings. You have to look inside and say, is it really them or is it really me?
Right.
And that's when I really realized that. And of course, it's working with the people I worked with who did their job at a high level and they were happy and they loved coming to work. And it wasn't them, it was me.
Yeah.
And I needed to, like we teach our kids now, and I preach this almost every day. When you walk into a room, you adapt to your environment. You bring in the best qualities of yourself, but you also have to adapt to your environment. And I was not adapting, so I was not preaching what I was telling the kids because I wasn't adapting. I was being selfish for what I thought I needed to be. I wanted to be a head director. I wanted to have an honor band, and it doesn't start with what it starts with how much you care, really, because that's where it's all at. Because how many of our kids become music majors? Think about it.
Right.
It's a very small number, and there's more than that. And one of the things that's also hit me is, do I know every single one of my kids that are walking in my class? How many siblings do they have? How many parents do they have at home? What ethnicity are you? Are you Mexican or are you from Guatemala?
Right.
I didn't know that, and so I started, to be honest with you, I started pausing during class. And I'll be honest, even today, my kids are like, okay, it's time to play now, Mr. Gonzales. Okay, I'll stop talking. But I talk to them because I literally want to know about them, because the more you know about somebody, the more you can understand somebody. My brother had he did a clinic at the Texas Bandmasters Association. He said something that it wasn't just profane to other people, it was profane to me as well. He said, in order to get to know, like, reach the kids, you need to understand the kid first. And another band director posted that, and there was another band director who I've never met before, had to have been a band director, said that is not right. They need to understand the teacher before the teacher understands the kid.
Wow.
And well, that's wrong. If we're the adults, we have a platform where we talk more than the kids talk, and they know more about us than we know about them for the most part.
Right.
So when you start understanding the kids and start asking them questions, and you start asking the right questions where everybody can interact inside the class, then you get to know about every single kid by the end of the year. And that was the biggest turning point for me is stop teaching 72 minutes a day or 72 minutes of class and start asking more questions on how are you doing? Where are you from? Where's your family from? Who likes this? Who likes pizza? Who likes this or whatnot? Who doesn't like this? And you find out really quick what kids like and what they don't like, and they feel more comfortable in your class.
You know, that's so awesome because it's like, this is what's coming to my mind. It's because you have to come to the realization that you're teaching people, not a product.
Yes.
It's good.
Absolutely.
So I just want to. So I don't realize this is about the importance of like influence of positivity. So like my first year teaching in spring, I worked with Chris, and then what I did was I went and watched a lot of teachers, and so it was funny because one of the places I went was to watch you guys. And I remember meeting. I met you first, Nick.
Yeah.
Before I met your brother, I was like, wait, there's another like y'all. Okay, yes,
the better looking twin, by the way.
I met, and like the energy and like how excited you were about things, and just how you interacted with kids. I was a young teacher. As a young teacher, you're trying to decide like, how am I going to be? Like how do I need to like present myself to be able to get results from the kids? And like just seeing like how you guys interacted with the kids, and then hearing like that group that you guys had, it brought chills to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this group is amazing, and like these guys are happy, and like they're still joking with the kids, and like you could tell the kids loved you guys, and they really enjoyed what they did, and the music was so good, and my conflict was that I guess some people can be I won't say ugly, but like the way they come off, in music, because we have to be critical about a lot of things. So they feel like they have to be a certain way. You have to be a certain way and respond a certain way to get, the best product possible. And I just didn't want to be like that. And I guess seeing you guys gave permission, I can be the same way, love on the kids and still get, the level of music that, is acceptable and recognizable, And one of my coworkers came to me. She said, I'm so happy that I work with you because you're so demanding from the kids and you love the kids. She said, but it's so pleasant to work with and you're happy all the time. I was like, and that came from early influences from people like you. So, I just want to let you know, it's so good. It's like full circle, because what I'm trying to do now is be that for my, my assistant, anybody who I can work with. So, that's the importance of positivity and how you can influence people.
Wow. Well, thank you. This is awesome. And you guys are doing That's a cool thing. Thank you.
Okay. I'll go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say that I had a similar thing. When I'm a percussionist, and when you're in college, you tech around a lot and all this stuff. And I kept coming back to the school where Pratt and Mosley were, and I kept asking myself, I was like, why am I always coming back here? Like, they don't pay me a lot.
We didn't pay him hardly ever.
or at all. So why was I wanting to come back to this school?
But we did buy you Whataburger.
You did. You bought me a lot of Whataburger, and right. God bless it. I think Whataburger is taking a huge hit because I haven't eaten there in about a year.
Probably.
But one day it finally hit me, and I think I even said this to you guys, is that because y'all went after rehearsal, y'all went in and you had a discussion not about the music, but about the kids. And you're like, oh yeah, so and so did this. Oh, did you see her? Oh yeah, she was about to jump out of her skin because I know exactly how she feels, and then and like this, and that's the type of person she wants to be, and she was not upholding her standard. And like, y'all were having these conversations about the kids and what they needed in order to become the people that you knew that they needed to be and the people that they wanted to be. And that's when I realized you weren't building a program off of music. You weren't building a program. You were building people, because that's what you were like. That's what your goal was. And that's why I had chosen to always come back to that school to teach with you guys, because it was always happy. Everyone knew my name, and you guys cared about the kids. Whereas the other schools where I was, it was like, we got to do this. And it was like, I don't even know who that kid's name is, but they're wrong, like you don't
You
even
know,
know the name of your kids. Like,
Right.
you take a step back, and I told this. Okay, so my junior high, and then I'll be quiet. My junior high teacher came over to the high school today, and they're getting ready for UIL too, and they're like, all frantic and stuff, and like, it's just on the stage, the kids, they were 9 and 10. I said, listen, take a step back. I said, they're just kids blowing air through tubes, right? And she said, what? And I said, quarantine has shown me that, and COVID has shown me that, like the importance of whatever. I said, it'll be fine. I said, guess what? They're just kids blowing air through tubes. And she was like, you're right. And she turned around. She's like, it'll be fine. And then she walked off, so like we had to like take a step back and be like, it'll be fine, whatever.
mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
Well, just to kind of wrap that up, Tyler, what you said, it really made me think this, like, and all of us, we've all been to collaborative teams and PLCs and meetings with other teachers. And I kind of challenge our listeners with this thought. I want you to consider the ratio, the amount of time you spend in any kind of professional meeting, whether it be a PLC, a collaborative team, whatever you want to call it, where your team meets together to discuss, right? And I want you to think about what is the percentage of time you spend talking about data and curriculum, and what is the percentage of time you spend talking about people. And that will show you where your priority is. Because when you go and spend all of your time talking about the data and the curriculum, you're never considering the actual thing we're trying to teach, which is children. I'm not saying not to talk about data and curriculum, because it's important, it has its place. But you have to consider, are you keeping it in balance? Because maybe the problem's not the curriculum. Maybe the problem is Johnny has this thing going on in his home life, and that's why he's not learning. Fill in the blank. So anyways, Nick, we want to hear more. So
oh my gosh.
So I mean, you come to this realization that it's not them, it's you, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And so you had some models in your life that really you just watched and you observed, and you said, we are teaching the same kids, but they're getting a different result, and they have a different way. And then you were wise enough to say, I'm going to change. So then what happens?
Well, that happens. And honestly, just like, of course, no job is easy. I tell my kids that every day. You're never going to go into a job and it's going to be easy. However, but you can be happy doing it. And that's what I learned from there. And so you fast forward, we get this big life change. And I honestly, I got out of education for 3 years. And partly because, I think a lot of us go through this where you have to search for yourself.
Yeah.
And my wife heard me multiple times saying, I don't know what I want to do. And I know I'm good at teaching, but is that what I'm supposed to do? And I literally took 3 years off. I went into sales 1 year, and then I was in ministry for 2 years, and did work in the music industry and all that, and what sounds cool and everything. But it all boiled down to the gift that we have, and I truly feel that everybody has a gift in something. Some people have a gift in sales. That's not me.
Yeah.
I knew pretty clearly after those 3 years, God gifted me with the gift of teaching and the gift with working with children, with kids. And so within that, I had this dream of starting a summer camp for disadvantaged kids. And part of that dream was because since we grew up very poor, there was an organization out there called the Fred A. Lennon Youth Camp. It was based out of Texas A&M University, and they actually look for kids in low socioeconomic communities, but looking at the big districts such as HISD, Houston Independent School District, or Dallas Independent School District. And it was kind of like how we start our Boys for Stone of Hope. They look for the kids that are good kids and that would need this. And I remember being in fourth grade, and one of the principals coming up to us and say, "Hey, would you be interested in this? Send this to your mom." And it was for that youth camp. Little did we know that it was going to be a big part of our life. And my mom was like, "Yes, I want my kids to live different than us. We made mistakes, you know, a lot of mistakes financially. We don't want our boys to be that." And so Chris and I go into this youth camp and find out if you go there for 4 years every summer, you get a full scholarship to Texas A&M. And
Wow.
we're like, whoa. And the cool thing is that they taught you to be a man. And it was just a boys camp. And it was 100% free. And they took us to all these really cool places. And when I got out of teaching in spring and quote unquote finding myself, where I was there the whole time. God has given me that gift the whole time. And but within that, about my third year, I really had this passion. You know what? It's time to pay it forward. And I miss working with kids, and it's time. It's time. And my wife is from Salt Lake City, Utah. Never in my life would I ever thought of move to Salt Lake City, even though we went and visited her family for every 6 months or so. And we always said, well, no, we'll never move to Salt Lake. You know, it's not like Texas. We love Texas. Again, Texas boy. And all of a sudden, we come to visit one July, and I just feel this calling to move to Utah. I'm like, oh man, nah, no, it's just an afterthought. And then I told Alia, and I was like, hey, are you thinking about moving to Salt Lake? And she looks at me like surprised, like, how did you know? I said, there's our answer. We're moving to Salt Lake City.
Wow.
What are we going to do? I have no idea. But all I know is God put in my heart to start an organization to work with kids. And as we're planning for that and believing for that and working at that, I'm here studying how to start a nonprofit and all this stuff. And then another thing happens. Uh, I, I get this itch to want to go back to teaching. And I'm like, whoa, okay, but I'm from Houston. Nobody knows me. Well, the way things worked out, that same July, my wife ended up having a lunch with one of her friends she grew up with, whose husband is a principal at an elementary who's moving to a middle school, starting a STEM school. And it just kind of started like that. And my wife was like, yeah, my husband's a band director and all that. And next thing you know, in around April, she calls my wife and said, hey, just checking, but did would y'all be interested in moving to Utah and your husband working with my husband? We're just throwing it out there. And my wife and I were like, okay, how did they know? And we're like, actually, we're about 60% really wanted to move. It's crazy that you say that. And met Tyler Howe, our principal, who grew up with my wife and everything. And I knew right then, I'm going back into teaching. But another thing was, I have a passion for working in Title I schools because of working in Spring. And I told my wife, well, if I really want to go back teaching, it really has to be a Title I school. Well, sure enough, the school he was starting is one of like 3 in the state, Title I schools, middle schools in the state. And one of the lowest achieving at the time, or one of the most lowest achieving and everything. And I just knew, God, this has to be it. Started, I got my interview, got the job. We were like, we're moving. We moved in July and all. And then next thing you know, I realized this is exactly where I need to be. Majority of our kids are Hispanic and islanders like Samoa, Tonga, and everything. And we have a good mix of. And we have about I would say about 30 or so different races at our school. It's a really really amazing place. But the best part was the Title I school. And for me, I'm going back to my roots, but I knew I was going to do it different. I wasn't going to go in with an ego like I did in Spring. This time I was going to go in it with what I learned leaving Spring, how to love kids. And so we started it, and it was a mess, y'all. I had 60 kids in my program. The kids ended up playing their first notes, and I was like, what is this? You're not even holding your instrument right. And it was a process of just fundamentals and all that. In that, as we're teaching and we start bringing people in to work with the kids, they start feeling special and they feel loved and all this. But the dream of starting Stone of Hope Youth never stopped. And guys, I'm a big believer that if God put something in your heart, you pray about it. But then after you pray about it, you got to work at it now. And so as soon as we moved to Salt Lake City, not only did I go into teaching, but I started working the program. And I'm like, how am I going to become a 501c3? I don't know anybody here. Next thing you know, somebody popped up. I love kids. I want to be a part of it. Casey Spencer came in, and he had a passion for it. And him and I started, and we met lawyers and all this. And next thing you know, we find more people, and then we ended up submitting and got our 501c3 and everything. And here we go. And one thing that we do and I learned a long time ago is that if you want something, you speak it into existence. You claim it right then. And so we started talking to people. Hey, we started a 501c3, and this is what we do. We work with disadvantaged young men, and we teach them to be young men of integrity. And guys, we hadn't even started yet, but we're telling people that. And it wasn't a lie.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah,
believing it. You know what I'm saying? We're
Yeah.
believing it. And next thing you know, we get with the Granite School District with the Choose Gang Free program, Maria Garcia, who's fantastic. And next thing you know, she led us to more people and led us to Stansbury Elementary. And I met Ronnie Broderick, who is the principal there. And I said the same thing I told my new mentors, who we didn't have a school to mentor, but they were my mentors. And I said, Mr. Broderick, nice to meet you. And this is what we do. We mentor kids that are in danger of dropping out of school in a few years that you have right now in 5th grade. And we're going to mentor them all the way up through high school. And we told them what we've already planned what we're going to do, but we didn't tell them we were going to plan it. This is what we do, because we're speaking into existence. And next thing you know, he said he loved it. And we had already been like denied by one other elementary. And I was like, what? You don't want this?
Right.
But that's okay. We're not for every school, because that wasn't our school we're supposed to be at.
Yeah.
Stansbury was already waiting for us. I truly believe that. And from there, we had this beautiful marriage between Stone of Hope Youth, and that's where Stone of Hope Youth was birthed. And you fast forward 5 years later, and we're running 40 plus kids and mentoring them. And we've seen a lot of changes, and I get to do that as an educator as well. So I have, believe it or not, 2 full-time jobs, and 2 full-time jobs where before we moved to Utah, when I got out of education, looking for myself, looking to the person I wanted to be, not only did I become an educator again, but I found my real passion just working with kids, period. And I'm living the dream. And just like I tell my kids, it's never easy, but it's so rewarding because we get to give back to kids and teach them these life skills. And so we do a mentor session, one at Stansbury Elementary once a week, and one at Westlake Junior High once a week. Next year, we're going to have our first set of high schoolers, and so that we mentor. We do service projects once a month. We run mini camps. This past Saturday, we did a rock climbing mini camp where we decided it's time to involve the dads. And so we paid for all of the boys to rock climb, but we paid for the parents to rock climb, but to learn how to belay their kids. It was one of the coolest, absolute coolest bonding experience between a son and a dad. And for our boys who don't have dads at home, it was a great bonding experience with their mom and them.
Yeah.
And those are things that we do. And but our big culmination of everything that we do mentor wise goes into our summer camps, where we have 4 days in the mountains, camp in, which none of these boys have ever experienced. And we spend 4 days of flat out teaching leadership skills, doing all these cool obstacle courses, learning how to canoe, but working as a team. And that's one of that's actually the biggest thing that we teach is how do you work with other people? Because we don't get mad at people and stay mad. We actually talk about it. And so we teach skills such as coping. We teach skills such as learning how to control your emotions. Because as we all know, emotions are always going to tell us no. But the facts in our mind need to tell us yes. And so we work a lot of doing that, of teaching that, excuse me. And we teach a lot of working as a team, because here's the reality. You're going to work at somewhere sometime after high school with other people. And so if you don't know how to work with other people, and I heard a quote a while back, uncoachable kids turn into unemployable adults.
Hmm.
And
Well, let's
we
put
teach
that on a
them that,
shirt and sell it.
I know. Listen,
hey, amen.
listen. That I've heard it before, but that definitely rings true.
Look, we're gonna quote
Yes.
you
Yeah.
on that one, just so you know, Nick. That is
Yes, I
quoted,
am.
and that's going on the Instagram page right now. Like that, that was yes. Just real quick while we're stopped, I just want to say that first of all, what you're doing for these young men is just absolutely unbelievable. For first of all, and my first year of teaching, I had to teach the cadet band, which was like the directors used to joke about that they were the undesirables because, like, you know, some of them don't even know how to hold their horn, and some of them are usually in and out of trouble, so like they're not even in class to learn, and you know, things like that. And I didn't like that thought process because, like, yeah, they're in the lowest form band or whatever, but they're still in bands. Obviously, they still want to learn music, so might as well go out there and teach them because they're here, you know? And it just kind of and I think I've told this story before, where it just so happened that all the girls were woodwind players and all the boys were brass players. And so when we would split, I would get the boys. And there would be days where I'd like look at them like, y'all don't look okay. What's wrong? And they would just ask me like, how do you tell a girl that you like her? And I was like, well, and then, like, you know, they would just start asking me these questions, and it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. They don't have dads at home. They don't have any other, and I was one of two male teachers, and the other one was the principal on campus.
Mhm.
Like, who else were they going to talk to about this stuff? And that's when I realized, I was like, my goal in this class is not to teach the music. If we learn how to play a trumpet, awesome. You know what? I'm going to push for it. I'm going to try to for it. But what they need is someone to tell them how to be a respectable young man,
Amen.
because they don't have it anywhere else.
Mhm.
And I only had, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 kids that were part of that brass class, 5 or 6 boys. So I can't imagine what it's like for you, because it was draining. It was really, really draining to be this really, not just this mentor, but this role model, and like to fill this void for all of these kids all at once, and to be so emotionally invested in every single one. So I commend you immensely, because
Thank you.
that takes a lot of energy,
Mhm.
a lot of energy.
It really does.
The last thing I'll say is, you are not the first band director, and certainly not the first teacher that I've heard who their story started out with, they were more career focused, and then an older, much wiser teacher got them to see differently, and then like their entire world was like spun around, and then they left education for a little bit, and they came back and they realized this is what it's for. So I don't think that's I I think that a lot of young people, when they come out of college, like, want to change the world, and they think that the way they do that is with their career, but really the way you do that is through kids, not through what's big name school that you're teaching for.
Exactly, and that's so true. And we said earlier that when you have a passion like this for kids, to surround yourself with the same people that have the same passion.
Yeah.
And so when we started our team, the number one thing I told my anybody who wants to be, and I still do it, who wants to be a mentor, is, are you coachable? Not if the kids are coachable. Are you coachable? Are you able to learn the kids? Because you know what? Like Chris Gonzales said, if you really want to understand kids, you got to understand kids. You got to ask them. And so that's what we do every day. And at that, people ask me, how do you teach kids all day and then work with kids all day
Mhm.
with your nonprofit? Well, first of all, it's a calling. Second of all, it's my team. I have an absolute amazing team of directors and mentors that love kids and bring value to the kids. And so, obviously, as the founder and as our directors, we have to model it. The only way a kid can learn how to love is to model love. Only a way a kid can model patience is to model patience, and we have to use our words. One proverb I always talk about is there's life and death in the power of the tongue. Those who eat it will bear its fruit. We talk about speaking life into kids' lives. I talk about this with my team, but you know what? In the school, I talk about it with other teachers as well, because at my school we have hands down one of the best principals in the entire state of Utah, but I would argue to say in the country, with Dr. Tyler Howe. I have never seen that man frazzle, but I've always heard him speak positivity. And that brings me peace that what I'm doing is right because my leader is doing that, which I turn into Stone of Hope Youth, modeling those mentors that we have and teaching that to our mentors to teach other kids. Because here's the deal. I'm a firm believer that kids that are acting up at home, a big number of them are looking for love at home, but they're not getting modeled. It's not being modeled at home, so they don't feel loved. And then they go to school looking for that in every single one of their teachers, and they find out their teachers are not patient with them, and they're yelling at them like their parents are yelling at them.
Yeah.
And so what happens? They don't feel loved. So where do they go? They look for kids their age, adolescents their age, that have the same mentality or the same what do you call it? Misery loves company.
Right.
And what ends up happening, they find people that accept them. And a lot of times, depending on the society you live in, a lot of it's the gang culture, because they're going to tell you, hey, man, we love you. You're part of our family. Come join our gang.
Right.
And so they're not getting it at home. They're not getting it at school. They're going to find it somewhere where it's more where it's negative. And so that's where us as teachers, we bridge that gap. And this is why we do what we do and we should be doing what we should be doing. And Chris, I loved how you said it. We should stop just talking about the data, the entire PLC meeting or whatnot, and start talking about how can you impact kids? How can you love kids better? Did you ask those kids the question, why are you acting that way? I had a kid, and I'll talk about one in teaching and one at Stone of Hope. But I had a kid a few years ago whose dad was in jail, and who was living with the mom, but was in drugs and who was on and off in drugs and selling drugs and all that in the middle school. And every teacher that talked about him said, "Oh, you have him." And guess what, guys? He joined band. And I didn't see a problem. I saw an opportunity.
Right.
I saw an opportunity. How can I treat this kid like my own son? How can I make him feel like, even though I'm not his dad, but he has another male figure to talk about anything? Well, friends, what ended up happening? He loved band, and he loved being in the band. He ended up, what do we call it? Band rats, ended up being a band rat, and he showed up to our concerts, and our teachers are so cool. They show up to almost every concert. Whether it's band, orchestra, choir, theater arts, or whatnot. And they saw him on stage. And they said, wait a minute. He hasn't shown up to anything, but he showed up to a band concert? I said, yeah. How'd you do that? I just loved him like he was my own kid.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, guys. And that's what every teacher should always seek that first. And once we do that and we find it, but we have to do it with our own personality, though, because I can't motivate kids. And I've seen Chris Pratt and I've seen Mosley teach, and they're spectacular. I tell people, I think Mosley, I've seen you teach out, but I spent more time with Chris. Was it Hamilton that you were at in HISD, Chris?
Oh, at Clifton.
Clifton.
Yeah.
And I just remember those kids were so focused on you.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of the coolest things. So you used a word, and I'll never forget it. And this is like 8 years ago, probably. Track me. And you see those kids right on you. And they did it because they knew that you cared. And when you were at your high school in Mosley, how much those kids just smiled when they walked in those band halls. That's Those are things that other teachers need to know, and they need to exert out. But Mosley, you're not the same as Pratt. Pratt, you're not the same as Mosley. Y'all have two different personalities, but you come up with the same outcome. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where it becomes universal. But making it yours, because you may have a dry personality. And if you have a dry personality, just as long as you're loving, uh, but not sarcastic. I am a firm believer that sarcasm is the worst form of leadership anybody
Yes.
can exude. And
Yes.
so when kids start feeling that, they don't understand sarcasm, but they understand acceptance. And they understand that when they make a mistake, it's okay. Our motto is at my school is try, fail, try it again until you succeed. So these kids are failing and finding new ways, and we're teaching them new ways, and it's beautiful, which we turn into Stone of Hope Youth, where we do that. We have the same motto: is guys, it's okay to make mistakes. We had a big basketball tournament with our boys yesterday, and we saw a breakthrough. We saw boys that 4 years ago would break down and throw, literally take their shoes off and throw their shoes across the room. I'm like, wait, whoa, what was that? And next thing you know, yesterday they lose, and you can see that they're about to get really frustrated and maybe start crying, but they know they're in middle school, so it's not as cool as crying as it is in elementary. And next thing you know, we go up to them and we stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, hey man, you played so hard. I've never seen you play that hard before. Like in anything we've done in the past 4 years, we're so proud of you. You need to be excited about what you just did, even though you didn't like the outcome. However, did you give it your all? Was it everything you got? And our boy was like, oh yeah. I said, we're so proud of you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this again next week. And so guys, our words, life and death in the power of the tongue. We could have said, well, you lost, oh well.
Mm-hmm.
But instead we're telling these kids, you lost, but did you learn from it? Is there something you could have done better? And learn to lose well. And so that's part of the process. And I'm saying this is the part of the process that adults still work on. And Lord knows there's times in my life I'm still working on it. COVID has been very tough for all of us teachers. We were essential workers, and we didn't have, a lot of us didn't have the outcome that we wanted. Me, especially, definitely. However, when those kids walk in, those are our blessings. And friends, I've been learning a few things these past few weeks, where, as teachers, we become the blessings for the kids and everything, and we seek for that. If you truly love kids in your classrooms, or if you decide to work with organizations that work with kids, our number one thing is to bless kids. But what we forget is that in that blessing that we exude out, we forget to find the blessings in our lives because we give it so much. And I've been finding this in my life that, you know what, I need a pause, because I'm working with kids. I'm giving, but I'm not searching for my own personal blessings that are all around me, like my kids, my wife, my family, my friends, my students, the teachers around me that are working so hard. And when you start looking at that, COVID becomes a little bit smaller, quite a bit smaller in your life. And and guys, in just the past few weeks, with my wife helping me and other people that even though they don't tell me this, but I'm watching them and I'm learning from them. It's finding your blessing helps you become a better blessing, and I'm a true believer in that. And I'm learning that.
Yeah, energy makes energy.
Yes.
If you have positivity will come towards you.
Yes.
So I have a few questions. Okay. So you said you were talking about the lack of love in things like that, and like that's how you won over these kids, because like they don't have the love at home, or maybe they don't have the love at home and they're looking for it in their teachers, and the teachers are impatient, so then they turn to gangs. And because I'm a big believer that great doesn't necessarily mean good. Great just means that it was done at a very well level. Because like things can be bad, but like Hurricane Harvey was great. It was just terrible. You know what I'm saying? It just did really bad things. So the message of a gang, of family is the same exact message that would be given in a normal family or a normal group of friends. The only thing of it is that it's toxic. Would you, is
Yes.
that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So then my question is do you think that the lack of love that kids nowadays experience contributes to their insecurities, and maybe like I'm thinking like especially like with girls, they have these huge insecurities, and then they don't have adults that they can find this love and admiration, so then they find it with these toxic relationships with other boys or girls or whoever. Do you think about that? And then like how do you counteract that? Is it just try to show them as much love as you can?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And to be honest with you, um, that's the first thing I think of when I see a kid like act out, because I truly believe there are no bad kids. They're just misguided kids, and they just need somebody to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we have to model it. Um, uh, for instance, I've had a kid, and again, I'll try to not use the years because I know some Utah folks will probably hear this, but who's been a foster kid his whole life, and he's a seventh grader, and has to have an aide and everything that walks around with him, and you know, he cusses out teachers, but he doesn't cuss me out. Instead, he shocked me and he hugged me because when he was saying things that he was not supposed to say, I said, "Look, man, I love you so much like my own son, and that's where we get them. Not as my son, but like my son or like my daughter." Something sparks. It's the words. It's something sparks in them. I care for
Mm-hmm.
you so much. And to be honest, we talk about people who inspire us. This person, I haven't talked to this person in years. His name is Jaime Trigo, out in Spring Branch. I saw him run rehearsals, and it's a big Title I school. And he said something that I use every day because of him. He looked at a girl that when he was doing a rehearsal, she wasn't paying attention. He looked at her and goes, "Mija, I care for you so much that I don't want you to talk, and I want you to learn. And I want you to do this because I care for you so much." Once the kids feel that, then yes, that love they don't feel at home, they immediately feel it in your classroom. And or when we do our mentor sessions, they immediately feel that. And how do you know? They keep coming in and they keep doing what you ask them to do, and they keep smiling and laughing on their good days, and of course they're going to have bad days, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I always ask my Stone of Hope boys, and that's the one thing we ask our kids that come into my classroom. If you're having a bad day, please tell me,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to assume that you're mad at me, and I want to make sure that I can be good for you. And if you need to sit out a little while, hey, look, this is an accepting place. You can do that. And when people feel that they can put their guard down, no matter what their home life is, when they have that one place, hopefully it's more than one, then yes, and then they change. And like you said, in the gangs, they're going to feel that at first until they
Mm-hmm.
get jumped in. And then that's where everything starts falling apart and everything. But we want to catch them before that, or even if they're in that process, we want to catch them, and we have to be totally pretty honest with them. Hey, man, I see that you're hanging out with these kids. These are not good. I want you to be in my band after school. I got some cool things for you. You can be with a bunch of other kids, and we have video games, we have snacks and everything. I keep a lot of food in my classroom, and we even have a Nintendo Switch in there. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And so we get them away from that. Because if we don't give them a place to be, they're going to be with the wrong people.
Right.
And so we want them to be around us. And this is why I truly feel like after school programs are powerful if done right, because they can be powerful and done well. They can be not powerful because they're done wrong, because it can feel just like school. And if an after school program feels just like school, people talk with their feet and they walk away. And so when they're in with me after school or any after school program for educators we have out here, how are you making it different than your classroom? How are you? I hope you're making it more accepting, a little bit looser, and having opportunities to teach life skills through those, and get to know the kids. And so I'm a true believer in that with kids.
Okay, that's a interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, Part. You can go ahead and say something.
No, go ahead, Tyler. If you can
Okay.
finish and then I'll go.
Well, I was gonna say, because you said you keep a lot of food, and a lot of snacks. When I
Mhm.
first started working with Pratt, there was a kitchen in the back of the band hall, and I was shocked. Don't think it was like a very extravagant. It was like a refrigerator and a sink. That was about it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there was no stove. The microwave went out. Like, it wasn't glamorous by any means, but there was a lot of food in there. There was a lot of peanut butter, and a lot of band parents came up and donated food. And a lot of those kids stayed after school just so that way they could munch and like just kind of eat some Cheerios or eat some peanut butter. They're kids who
Mhm.
like did all this type of things and just hang out in the band office and hang out just in the band hall. And it was like the food was there. And I never thought about that as being a ploy until you just said that. But I mean, every single holiday, it doesn't matter if it is 4th of July, Christmas, I mean, Thanksgiving, all we do is eat. Like, every single holiday is a gathering for friends and family to eat. There's not a single thing that we celebrate that does not involve food. So that just now I think about it, like, duh, like, yes, of course, like, if you're gonna have anything after school, then you should have some type of snack or something to not
Mhm.
just get them there, but to like, it makes it more fun. It makes it more
Yeah.
personal. It makes it a social event.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that's something
And
that
you,
I just kind of clicked. Go ahead.
yeah, there's a power in a bag of Takis. I'm serious. There's power in that. And you
Mhm.
know when and and but you also I truly believe that you have to look at your environment also, and the kids that you have. For instance, our Hispanic culture loves spicy food. Where
Hmm.
Takis, I have I try to have as many hot chips as possible for them, but then I have some of the non-spicy for our non-Latinos and
Right.
everything, and I have candy in there and water and everything. But like you said, Tyler, is food brings people together, and that's not just in America, that's all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Food brings people together, and it's no different in the school. It brings kids together, and
Mhm.
that's the best time to really make those connections with your kids.
Well, and I mean, it's a basic need, and when kids realize that you're
Hmm.
willing to meet their basic needs, they're interested. You know, it's a
Mhm.
hook. Okay, so I have this question for you, Nick. Okay,
Yes.
so maybe we have people that are listening and they relate to the struggle, and they say, like, I have kids in my class that I'm just mad at all the time or whatever, but I'm recognizing it's not them, it's me. But a lot of times it's very hard for a teacher to cross that barrier to build that relationship, especially if that relationship is already damaged, right? Maybe, because I guess there's two scenarios here. There's maybe where there's not a damaged relationship, it's just a difficult situation and I've got to get this kid to turn around. But then maybe there's the more complicated situation of maybe I have a history with this kid where I haven't been kind to him. So what advice would you give a teacher to take that first step? Because the kid is not going to take the first step.
Yeah.
So
And we
what?
we Yeah, and we always have that kid. You know him from day one,
Yes.
pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do, because guys, none of us are perfect. I mean, we've been in education a long time, and then we still say things we don't want to say to kids, and especially the kids who like push back. And I mean, we do that with our own kids at home from time to time. One thing that I've found is no matter what part of the process that you're in with that kid, whether it's a negative process and you got to get out of that little situation. When I give kids a job to do in my class, without even saying anything, they feel important. And even the kids that, like, you know what? Oh my gosh, we are just not clicking. We haven't clicked for weeks. You know what, Jose? Could you do me a favor? Look, you know what? I trust you.
Mhm.
Could you be the person that just gives this? And I'm going to give you a candy every single time. And that, like we said, food, candy, it kind of softens it, but you give them purpose in their life.
Mm.
And you don't have to apologize at that moment, but it starts the reconciliation with that kid or multiple kids. Because I just found in my teaching that kids want to have that purpose. They want to feel, remember, they want to feel important. They want to feel loved. They want to feel accepted. Well, you at least give two of those. You give them feel accepted and feel important, because now, oh my gosh, I have a job in my classroom I can do, but she doesn't like me or he doesn't like me. Why did they give me that job? And why are they offering me candy? Did something change?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so for me, that has worked great for me in the past. And those are the times where if they have to do something at the end of class, and I give, because usually I don't give the candy till after class or the reward, that's really my time to apologize
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
say, look, I'm so sorry.
that's something that really to put a pin on. And I was like my coworker across the hallway said, he said, Mosley, you do something with your kids, and I'm like, what? He's like, you'll like they'll come in the room. He said, and every now and then you'll call one of them over and you'll like say something to them. I'm like, I do. And I do, and it is, and I realized that after that, I'll just do it just to make a connection with them and make them feel special. But
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I do that. Okay, I understand. I'll keep doing that. But it's something that you said, Nick, and it's about the trust thing because I think kids, especially high school kids,
Mm,
adults don't trust them, or
yeah.
they don't show they can put trust in them. And what I do is I'll find something like you said. I'll ask them a question, even though I know the answer. I'll send them. I'll send them to do a task, like you said. I'll whatever, and they see like he's put trust in me, like and then
Hmm.
which they don't normally get. And if they mess up, they messed up. But like they're seeing that someone who has like authority,
Yeah.
giving some trust in them, which they don't see, and that opens up a channel, in
Yes.
which I think a lot of them don't see. So
Hmm.
that's something for us to evaluate as teachers is do the kids think that you trust them, because when they do that, then they'll let their guard down with you,
Yes.
and because it's always this, the guard is up because there's this trusting and then kids don't trust adults and vice versa. So we can't break the barrier. So I can't give you information because we don't trust each other, so that's a big thing that I think
Hmm.
we have to evaluate the level of trust you have with your students. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So Nick, tell us this as far as your organization goes, Stone of Hope Youth, and we've got a pretty good picture now of what you're doing for these kids, and I see, and maybe I realize that it may not be the exact same kids that you're teaching on the daily that you're working with in your foundation. It may be two totally different kids, but it feels to me that you approach both sets of kids the same way. you know
Yes.
so in other words, it doesn't matter if they're your students or if they're kids in your mentorship program. You treat them the same because kids are kids.
Amen. That's right.
Hmm.
That is
So
100% correct.
so I love that. So I guess I'm just curious, and I know that your organization is still developing and you're probably still
Hmm.
learning exactly what you guys have the gift to do, right? But
Right.
maybe just give us a quick picture of what does success look like for these kids? Like, what are you hoping to get them to? I mean, obviously you're getting them off the streets, you're trying to keep them out of
Hmm.
gangs. I mean, and all this, ultimately because you said you've been doing this for like 4 years now.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you haven't had kids that have graduated high school or anything like that. So they're kind of in the middle of this program and they're in this transition. So what's your goal? Where are you trying to get them?
Mindset change. That's the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is learning to be successful in little things, but really character. That's the number one thing. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a master's degree in microbiology or whatnot. If you have no character and you don't have people skills, it doesn't work. If you end up going into sales and you don't know how to work with a team or be kind to people, because that's number one.
Yeah.
When you work with people or hang out with people, then for us, if we didn't teach that, number one is to be a great young man of integrity, that and we teach you to handle your emotions in a positive way, and to be able to breathe and be able to be kind even though you don't want to. That number one is a very big success. That's a huge success stories for us, because they don't start off that way when we get them in fifth grade.
Yeah.
And because we get a lot of the kids, majority of the kids are, you know, they're working a lot of things out. They're having a lot of hurt at home, and But when we start seeing that, which we have seen that in every kid, we know we're in the right track now. And now we just got to keep going. We got to keep learning new things, because once they get into high school, it's going to be different because they're older and leading up into college. And so that's number one. Our number two is to get them through high school.
Yeah.
Is for them not to drop out. Look, we don't care if you go to a 4-year college, and we don't care if you go to a trade school. We want you to do something with your life to be to be able to give back to society, in your job, and to give back to people. And so we actually do this program called the 5 C's in our program. And what these 5 C's do is they teach them how to be compassionate and how to be caring. And the last one, there's actually a 6th C, and the 6th C is to contribute. And contributing means giving back to society. And so that's we do a little bit of that, but we're working through these other 5 C's before they get there, because our goal is for them to be mentors for us.
Love it.
For our Stansberry kids, because that's their contribution back to society. Even though, yes, the service projects we do, like working in City Hall and the animal shelter, that's all great and everything. But when you give back to an organization that has given so much to you, and you do it not because you have to, but because you want to. And so, and that's where we really want our boys to be. And we're gaining on them. We're starting to see some good stuff, y'all.
But I asked what are the 5 C's?
Oh my gosh! You know what? You said it.
Am I putting you on the spot?
You're putting me on the spot. Hold on.
And I know Chris too. Like Chris likes things like this too. And I know I do too.
You
like
know, I was sitting here trying to figure them out.
Oh my gosh!
Me too. Like I love that because that's that's culture.
Oh gosh, y'all! These are incredible.
I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No. You're great. And actually, it's they have this organization. There's a professor at Oregon State University that is really using this. It's like for comprehensive studies and positive use development and everything. And my gosh, they're doing this all over the country, and they're actually trying to see if this process, if it can change kids. And it's all, simple things, y'all.
So where did the 5 C's come from?
It's the mindset thing.
But like who came up?
Who developed it?
Yeah.
It was a person named, give me one second, Richard M. Lerner.
Okay.
And he did applied research for youth development, and came up with this and he has a whole bunch of researchers that go out and try to see what kind of data they can get. And it's incredibly, like, there's so much, it's a data driven program. And so, but the cool thing is, it's data driven. However, you make it what works best for your kids. And so, and that's what makes this so cool for us, is because we don't have to look at this whole list of things that we need the kids to have. We focus on one. And so what we've been doing is every quarter we focus on one. So we just finished, since we've been back since COVID, the first one is competence. And so, and there's like, within that, you got to learn social skills, learning academic skills, cognitive skills, health and vocation, all that. The second one is connection, which is what kind of relationships are you building? And right now that's where we are. So that's why we're doing a lot of our team sports right now. Like we have one more week of 3-on-3 basketball tournaments that we're doing with our boys. And what we're doing is we're teaching them how to lose well, and we're teaching them how to work well together. So we do a lot of passing drills, but you not just pass, you got to say their name, because that's part of being in a relationship. You just can't go, hey, you got to say, no, call them by name. Hey, John, hey, can you pass the ball to me? Because like I said, in a job, everything we teach them is to teach them how to become great employees and great bosses. And so part of that connection is building those relationships with, if you're a teacher, with your students and your coworkers, if you're a social worker, with the people that you're under and the people that you work on in your office or whatnot. The next one is confidence. We truly feel, and this is why we love this. once you learn the social skills and you learn how to work around in the relationships, you don't necessarily have to have all the confidence in the world, but it's still something you have to work on. So this is where we teach self-worth to the kids, and we haven't hit that one yet. We're going to hit that one at summer camp in June. That's going to be the very first thing that we work on one of our days, is how do you feel about yourself? And actually, we gave them a little taste of it because Chris, you saw that video on social media. We were talking actually before we that was filmed. We were actually talking about summer camp. And because they're going to do some really hard things, like they're going to be on this huge rope course that it's like 50 feet above ground.
Yeah.
That's literally in the trees in the mountains. And, and how are you going to talk to yourself? Are you going to convince yourself that you can't do it? Because if you convince yourself you can't do it, you're right.
Yeah.
Or are you going to say, you know what, I can do hard things and I'm going to do it. And you know what, look, that one station, I got Nick right there to clip me in when I get there. I got David right there to clip me in. I got Derek right there to clip me in. And so we're really focusing on a lot of that and how you speak to yourself. There's just so many things, and these are things adults struggle with, and like I said in that video, is like the person who speaks most negatively to you is you. Most people will speak positivity in your life except for you, and saying I can't do that, or I'm ugly, or I'm not worth this, or I'm going to fail this class. When, well, if you're going to say it, you're right. Now let's not say it and say the opposite, and let's work at it. And you got us to help you.
Yeah.
The next one is character, which I'll be honest with you, character is one thing we've worked on since day one, is having integrity and that's always going to be an ongoing thing because y'all know, guys, we worked with middle school kids and we work with high school kids. Man, puberty is a monster, y'all.
Yes.
And if you have your own kids, oh my gosh, it's like they're like these, they beautiful human beings, and then for about a year or 2 or 3 years, they change into folks you're like, whoa, hold on, where did that come from? So what we're trying to teach is before you get there, you can check yourself during those transitions in your life. And how do we do it? We do it by modeling. We do it by modeling and constantly talking about what is right and what is wrong, and why is that right. So we give them a lot of scenarios inside of our mentor program and whenever we have it on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we'll do things like, hey, you saw a $50 bill on the floor. What do you do? And you'll have some kids, I pick it up, put it in my pocket, and walk away. And then you have some kids who's like, I leave it there just in case the person realizes that they don't have it and it fell out of their pocket, and they come back and it's right there. So we give a lot of scenarios with that inside of Stone of Hope Youth, and I give a lot of scenarios in my teaching. So character is huge, and I would say character is the core of all of the 5 C's for us, because it comes out of our 5 principles that we started with at Stone of Hope Youth, which is honor, integrity, perseverance, hope, and love. And so what we're actually doing with our personal Stone of Hope Youth 5 principles, which is honor, integrity, perseverance, hope, and love, we're marrying the 5 C's into our own 5 principles.
Yeah.
And it is right now working absolutely beautiful. And so it's so cool. And now the last 5 of the 5 C's is caring. Do you have compassion for people? Because we know in schools, and I tell my students all the time, especially our Stone of Hope boys when we start in 5th grade, unfortunately, the older you get, the meaner people get. Think about it. You see kids in elementary school and kindergarten. You look at as a whole, those kids, they're pretty loving kids coming and doing what they're supposed to. But by the time they get to 5th grade, you see more of he's talking about me, or she's talking about me.
Yeah.
He called me ugly. And the older people get, human beings get, depending on how they're cultured at home, the meaner they get, unfortunately. And so, and sometimes even your best kids say things that you don't want to. Why? It's just part of the of the growing up thing, and that's part of the learning thing where we have to teach them to not that it's not okay to say that. And so caring is really big for us. It's compassion, and another one is empathy. Um, when we were in had these boys in fifth grade, and we have a new set of fifth graders every year. When they lose, we see a lot of them crying, and then they feel real bad for crying. And we have to teach the boys, hey, it's okay to cry. You don't have to be a girl to cry. Men cry too. It's okay. And you know what? There are going to be times that we cry with you because we care about you. Your loss is my loss. Your win is my win because we care about you. So empathy is so, so important. So those are the 5 C's, but we told you there was a 6th C, which is contribute. And that contributing is once you not master, because guys, this is a lifelong process, which even as, like I said, as an adult, we're still learning because guys, I'm a true believer that we're constantly evolving as people. You get into one stage of your life, you change. You have kids, you change.
Yeah.
You have friends that, in your 30s that are like, let's go hang out, and you go hang out. Then you have kids, you're like, oh, I can't hang out. I got to have dinner with my family.
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
constantly evolving as human beings as we go. And but things that as we evolve, these 5 C's and our 5 principles that we have at Stone of Hope Youth always need to be at the forefront. And a lot of times they're not, because sometimes things change so much. Sometimes you move to a new city. Sometimes you move from Houston to Salt Lake City. Doggone it. That's a whole different culture. And you know what? But you have to, like we tell our kids, you have to adapt to your environment, but you got to still care for people, have that character, confidence, connection, but then give back. And this is why we started Stone of Hope, because in my life, guys, this is my time in my life where I've evolved, where I can now contribute to more people outside of my profession.
Yeah.
And guys, I'm living the dream right now. And we're seeing, and it's not easy, but my gosh, it is worth it. And I told my wife that, I can never see myself retire. And I can't see myself retire because I love what I do so much. And we're in our 40s already, and some people are retiring in their 50s. And I'm like, 50s? That's like a few years from now. I'm not retiring. I'm in my 20s right now.
Right.
But I can never see myself retiring, just because I'm working with kids and we're changing lives and we're teaching them to be the best people and to be leaders in West Valley City or Salt Lake City. I'm convinced right now, guys, that one of our boys right now is the mayor of Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Or the governor of Utah.
Yeah.
I'm truly believing that right now. And my team believes it too. And you know what? We say it all the time with our kids. And now we're really praying that they believe it. But you know what? In my classroom, I see the same thing. And one thing I tell my kids in my classroom is, and I tell them often, I don't see unsuccessful people in my classroom. I don't see low achievers in my classroom. I see high achievers. And raise your hand if you feel like a high achiever. And guys, y'all should try that. Y'all should try that. And see how few people raise their hand.
Yeah.
We have a culture right now, friends, that losing is attractive, but it's only attracted to kids. There's that saying, try hard. Oh, he's a try hard. Or, oh, she's a try hard. I tell my kids, hey, guys, and I know everybody listening to this podcast has heard it at least once or multiple times. Guys, I tell my kids that, guys, only kids say that. I've never heard an adult call another adult a try hard. I've never. It's a kid thing. And then I there's a quote by Nick Saban that says, high achievers can't stand being around low achievers, and low achievers can't stand being around high achievers.
Wow.
And
That's
it
true.
made sense to me, because those kids calling the kids tryhards, they're jealous because they're the ones getting all the accolades, and they're not there because they don't have the work ethic.
Yeah.
And those are the kids that we have to focus on so that we can teach them and change their mindset to be those high achievers. So it even comes to my class where I'm like, guys, if you ever call a kid a try hard, you're talking to your boss, your future boss, So
Yeah.
you should probably, be a little bit kinder.
Mhm.
But at the same time, now, when I say this, please, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being negative to the kids, because I'm not. The kids know I love them.
Mhm.
But in my classroom, if I see a kid not trying, I always go back to, are you acting like a low achiever? Not are you being a low achiever. I would
Mhm.
never call a kid a low achiever, but are you acting like a low achiever? And I've said this quote so many times, and whenever I say, "Are you acting like a low achiever?" They're like, no," because we set the culture in my classroom, and we set the culture at Stone of Hope, that it's not cool to be a low achiever, because we don't see unsuccessful people in our classroom. We see only successful kids in our class. So start acting like it, because if you're acting the opposite way, you know what? We can predict your future right now. And you know what? We care for you so much, we can't see you do that.
Yeah.
And so that's my philosophy of teaching kids in the classroom. And by far, teaching my kids at Stone of Hope Youth is, you know what? We're not building anything. We're raising kids, and we're helping the families raise kids. Because you know that whole term, it takes a village to raise a child.
Mhm.
Mhm.
We're part of that village. If you're a teacher, you're part of that village, whether you like it or not. You are part of that village. You are the person that is helping that, molding that kid to be that high achiever, be molding that kid to be that governor of a state, and all that. And we got to find those and pull it out of the kids as positively as possible.
That's
So
good. Okay, so one last question, because I know we're getting to the end of the program, but one last question I have for you is, I truly trust and believe that there are lots of educators listening right now that they're going, you know what he's saying resonates with me, and maybe they have some goals or some dreams, where they're like, I've been wanting to get beyond the classroom to have an impact, or maybe just in their classroom, or whatever the case may be, but they have a big plan. Like you had a big dream in your heart and you're seeing it come to pass. So can you just quickly give us maybe a couple of action steps you would give advice to that teacher? How do you
yes.
move forward with whatever that dream is?
Very first thing, write it down. Get a pen and paper and write it down. Because if it's just in your mind, and you put it in a place that you're going to see it. The vision boards are big right now, and I believe in
Mhm.
vision boards. Man, guys, in front of my desk at home and in my room, I wrote down all of my dreams and goals and where I want to be, and I have it right there for me to see every single day. And now that my dream has started, and we've started Stone of Hope Youth, we have gear, we have shirts, we have jackets, we have hoodies, and we have beanies and all that. So every day I'm looking at my vision board on my body. So
Mhm.
friends, write it down first, and you may not find it. You may not know what it is. Heck, I've spoken to so many adults that don't know what they want to do. I was one of those years back before we moved to Utah, and that's okay. But I highly suggest, if you have some kind of inkling of passion that you have, find that flame, even if it's a little flame, and stick to that flame and write it down. And guys, like I said before, I'm a firm believer in speaking it into existence, and then start moving, start researching, start going at it. And even if it's one thing, guys, here's the deal. You don't have to be the CEO of a company to be a leader. You don't have to be a founder of a nonprofit organization to be a leader. So if you don't know what that is, find something that you have a dream in that somebody else has started, and go volunteer. And then you be a really great leader for them and learn as much as you can from that leader. And then when you're ready and you feel called to it, go ahead and branch out and start your own. But don't just sit there thinking about it. Write it down and start looking up at what places can you where can you volunteer, and or what kind of program can you start at your own school, after school program. Yes, you can start a mentor program at your school. Talk to your principal. Give them your vision. Give them what you feel like would reach the students, and then come up with a plan. How do you come up with a plan? You go and find somebody else that's doing it, or another school that's doing it, and copy that, or find curriculum and do that. And if you really want to live that dream out, but you don't know how to do it, copy somebody. We're band directors. Everything we do, we steal from other people. Every idea we have, we've stolen from other people. And so the same is true for everything. As a mathematician, as everything we do is taking from somebody and learning from somebody, but now implementing it. Friends, I highly encourage you. Yes, your emotions will tell you no because it's too hard, but don't go by your emotions. Go by the facts and know that this is your passion, and I just do it.
Yeah.
You'll find out you'll have other people on board with you, and you bring those people on board. Those people who are not on board, don't put them on board. Keep them away from the bus. And you just focus on those people. And that's how you start it. Start small. And if it's successful, and exactly, and you'll know if this is truly your dream, because if you don't have passion for it and you're not obsessed over it, because I'm obsessed over Stone of Hope Youth. I'm obsessed over teaching my kids at Westlake Junior High. I'm obsessed over it. I think about it every single day. And you know what? I just got a text message from my director of mentoring, David. And he goes, man, I've been out sick, but all I can do is think about Stone of Hope Youth. He's my team member. He didn't start Stone of Hope Youth, but he's a huge part of Stone of Hope Youth because he's obsessed over it. And that's what I love. And those are the people you want. And if you want to start something, find that obsession, find that flame, and don't stop thinking about it and just do it. If you fail, you learn. If it works, you learn. And then you're going to learn how to do it better. And if you're learning that it wasn't for you, there's always going to be something. Just keep finding it and writing it down. That doesn't work, check it off. Didn't work. Let me try something else. So that would be my encouragement of anybody who wants to go in. But start volunteering. Find your church, find your school, find different places to volunteer. That's a contributing part of what everybody in this world want, is to be able to give back. So
Nick, thank you. I mean, we can't even begin to thank you. I mean, I have written more notes in this episode than I think I have ever. And this has been huge. So I just want to say thank you for your time today. Thank you so much just for sharing everything that you're doing with us. And we just look forward to seeing the success that comes out of your organization. So real quick, why don't you tell people how to connect with Stone of Hope Youth?
Okay, guys. stoneofhopeyouth.org, www.stoneofhopeyouth.org. If you're in Salt Lake City and you've heard this podcast, which I'm hoping it's thousands of people, please go on our website. There's an about page. There's a volunteer page. Go on there and click the form and volunteer your time and make a difference in a kid's life. Because what you're going to find out is not just making a difference in the kid's life. Those kids are going to make a big difference in your life. So please volunteer. And so if you're not living in Salt Lake City, please, we would love for you to partner with us financially and become a monthly donor for us. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so anything you give, you get a tax break. Yay. Yeah. And we love that. But friends, please support our ministry. Please support us on what we're doing, because we are working really hard. We have a fantastic team. We have boys, and we're changing families' lives. And your contribution absolutely helps in that, because we are working on a daily basis to change kids' lives. And our dream is not small. Our dream is huge. Our dream is Salt Lake City to the state of Utah and to the surrounding states. So please, please partner with us and donate. Go to www.stoneofhopeyouth, click the donate page, and please, we would highly appreciate you supporting our ministry. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Nick, like I said, just thank you so much. Look, if you want to get in touch with Nick, obviously he's given you all the contact information, but you can also check out our website, www.teachbigger.com. We'll have links on the site there. You can re-listen to this podcast as many times as you want. All his information will be there. You can directly get on his website from there if you forget how to get there. And we just want to see the great fruit of what you're doing, man, because you're doing you're doing something big, and that is just tremendous. I mean, you're in it for kids, And so we just applaud you and we thank you. So Nick, thanks for being on today. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Again, you can reach out to us at teachbigger.com. If you want to connect with us, feel free to email us at info@teachbigger.com. And also, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're just blowing up the social media world, sort of. So, so follow us there at Teach Bigger, and we want to connect with you. And I would kind of finish out the program by saying this. If you have some ideas, or maybe you're wanting to do something really big and you just need some encouragement, feel free, DM us on social media, email us, tell us your plans, and we want to support you in the same way that we're supporting Nick. And we'll help, if we can, connect you with people who can be, that foundation of encouragement for you. So thanks for listening today, and we'll be with you again next week.